Welcome to How to Successfully Telecommute. During this unusual time, it's more important than ever that we remain calm. That's because when we're stressed, our brain releases stress hormones that actually impact our immune systems. We want them as strong as possible to fight against getting the virus. So stay calm. An easy way to do this is simply breathing. So let's start by taking in a nice deep breath through the nose, holding it for a count of 4, and slowly releasing through the mouth. Ready? In, hold, 2, 3, 4. Slowly release through the mouth. You can do this as many times a day as you need to. Anytime you feel anxiety rising, just stop and do this little breath exercise.
What could be easier than working from home? Roll out of bed, grab coffee and a donut, turn on your computer. Not if you want to be productive. From a psychological perspective, wearing jammies sends a signal to the brain that it's time to wind down, sleep, or relax. We want to be awake, alert, and focused. Wake up at the same time that you would if you were going into work. Make your bed. This not only diminishes the temptation to get back into it, but studies show that making your bed is a keystone habit that leads to increased productivity. Groom just as if you would if you were going into work. You may not have to dress as formally as if going to the office, but consider that you may be on camera now, sometimes on short notice. More importantly, if you look professional, you're sending your brain the stimulus that you're working. It's extremely important to create distinct boundaries for your own self-care. Without this, it is a very slippery slope to working 7 days a week because there's no distinction between work time and off time. Bedrooms are for personal time, not work, so this is another boundary that is important to establish. If your bedroom is your only available option, create a very distinct space for work and only work in that space, not from your bed.
So let's talk about workspace considerations. A separate room, of course, is the ideal, but if you can't do that, if that's your only option, then look around your home. What is the quietest space? If possible, choose a space where other members of the household won't be traipsing through as you're trying to concentrate. So, for example, if you choose a living room and the kitchen is on one side and a bathroom is on the other, you're going to be asking for a lot of traffic, which means a lot of interruptions. So if that's your only choice again, then at least go into a corner instead of being in the middle of the room. You want to take into consideration household noises. Refrigerators can make a lot of noise, heaters, hot water pipes. Remember that even though you don't notice it when you're living in your home, you are going to notice it when you're on the phone a lot more than you have been before. And of course on video conferences. So those noises can be picked up through microphones and it can really interrupt your conversations. Then there's outside noises. If you are facing a busy street, you might have cars honking or loud mufflers or just in general, all kinds of, car alarms. It's a lot of noise. And again, you don't notice it when you're living in your home because you're kind of noise deaf to it, but you won't be, again, when you're on a microphone or on camera. An alley might be problematic on trash days only. So then if you're aware of that, if you're facing the alley, just don't book client calls or online meetings during the hours of the day that the trash pickup happens. You have to consider noisy neighbors. So if you've got them, then try not to work on that side of the house. You want to make sure that you have electrical outlets and the ability to charge your devices right at your workspace. You don't want extension cords going across rooms. You don't want there to be any disruption in a call if your smartphone is dying. So make sure that you have that connectivity. You also want to make sure that you have adequate lighting wherever you're working in the home. And that's not just so that you can see, but bright light helps you stay awake and alert. And also, as the weeks wear on, it'll help you feel a little bit more cheerful. Now, finally, make sure that you have internet and satellite access wherever you're setting up your new office. You might have a dead zone or a dark zone. Most people do. So walk around with your device through all the areas of your home and just notice what happens to the bars on your device. You're going to have some spots where it's really low or maybe not consistent, and that's not ideal if you're going to be spending all of your time either online or on the phone. Working from home takes a lot of discipline, and most people really have a little bit of difficulty with it when they first start. It seems like it'd be easy, right? But and once you start, maybe it's not so easy. So it'll basically take you a few days or even a couple of weeks to get into a rhythm, depending on your personal circumstances. Remember that your brain is going to be confused at work at first. Excuse me. You may have a very long, very deeply embedded habit that when you're off, you're home. You should be doing home things. This means that at first you have to be really disciplined in establishing a structure, and you're going to have to create some new habits. Our brains love structure. When you're at work, the structure is provided for you, but now that you're home, you're going to have to provide that structure. And if you don't, you're going to find that your days just slip on by and your productivity gets worse and worse. The initial challenge is really just figuring out what works. So we're going to give you these guidelines, and you're going to try them for a couple of days, 3 days maybe, and then observe as you go what's working well and what's not working well. And then just make adjustments for those things that aren't working well. You're probably going to have to do this a few times before you strike the perfect balance that works out, considering your home circumstances. Of the utmost importance is creating a schedule and rigidly sticking to it, at least for the first couple of weeks. This is how you create a habit. You have automatic neural connections that are going to keep telling you you're off, you're home, you're off, right? So if you create a schedule and follow it very strictly, you'll start to change those neural connections. Now you want to fill in every half hour on your calendar. Start with what time will you start? When does your workday start? This is very important because time starts to just kind of vanish when you're working from home. And if you don't set a start time and an end time, you're going to find that you're working way too many hours. Block off each task on your calendar. So it's not just going to be, well, you probably don't have a lot of outside appointments now, right? So you're going to block off your calls, your meetings, and your tasks on the calendar. If you do this, it's going to support your brain's adaptation and it will help you stay focused. And you are going to get unfocused. There's a lot of distractions in the home. So by following your schedule very strictly for the first couple of weeks, you're going to create these new habits. Plus, you're going to feel much more in control of your work life. You need to include breaks on your calendar. Again, once you start working and you kind of get into this zone and you don't have to get up and go anywhere, or you don't really have to move, which is not a healthy thing, you will find that you forget to take a break at all. You forget to take a lunch break. The day just kind of blends together one after the other. So again, structure is what's important here. I also suggest, especially when working from home, but this is true in general, that you take a short break every 90 to 120 minutes. This allows your brain to reset, and it coincides with your natural ultradian rhythms. What those are it's like your circadian rhythms related to sleeping at night. The ultradian rhythms are what happens during the day, which is your energy starts high, your productivity, your enthusiasm, and about every hour and a half to 2 hours, it's slowly sliding from the beginning, but you start to really drop after that first 90 to 120 minutes. So if you take a very short break, give your mind a little reset, you'll pop back up to your highest level again. And so you end up being much more productive throughout your day. Remember again that your first attempt at this is probably not going to work perfectly smoothly. So experiment until it feels right. Now, a lot of us are facing this. A lot of adults are off work. Some of them, or a lot of them, are also working remotely. Kids are all home from school, and that makes setting boundaries critical. So finding privacy and communicating boundaries can be challenging if we're talking about your family members. It's going to be very hard to say to your loved ones, hey, I'm still at work, leave me alone. But that's what you kind of need to do, just perhaps in a more respectful or kind tone. If other household members are not working, they're going to have trouble understanding why you're not paying attention to them, or even why just small interruptions might be problematic for you. Remember, they're used to the same thing, that when you're off, when you're home, you're off, and they're accustomed to freely conversing with you, right? So have a conversation with any other adults in the household, and older children too can be involved in this meeting, to discuss how you're going to plan to do your work, what cooperation you need from them, and agree on the ground rules. And of course, if you have other members in your household also trying to work remotely, you have a lot of coordinating and collaborating to do here to make sure you're not tripping over each other. Now, a couple of things to consider no matter what is, number one, television. If you have members of your household who are not working, and the television is in the same room where you are setting up your office, you need to seriously consider moving it. It may not look great in the kitchen or sitting on the floor in another room, but it's really critical. Television is extremely distracting. So you need to be working where you cannot hear or see the TV. Secondly is visitors. And of course, that's greatly restricted now, but there are still people visiting, family members and things like that. You need to set a rule during your work hours. If somebody else in the house wants visitors, it can't be where you can see or hear them. Consider that if you were at work, friends or family wouldn't come hang out at the office, right? You'd wait till after office hours. So you need to think like that they can't hang out at your new office during work hours. You're going to have to be really firm about this at the beginning. This is the key to success, is setting the structure, the schedule, and the boundaries. And then you'll find you can get your work done, and probably faster than you did when you went into the office. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that with a written schedule or schedule on your computer, you want to share it with all members of the household. It's amazing how much disruptions will be minimized if people know when they can bother you, right? So if your significant other or your children see what time they have access to you, it helps them be patient during the time that they don't. Now, of course, there are kids everywhere now. And if you have kids home from school, you want to first make sure that your supervisor knows this and clarify what is expected of you. If you're a supervisor, keep in mind that while you may desire a full 8-hour day from your staff, flexibility is really critical right now during this unusual circumstance. Depending on the age of the children, accommodations may be needed. And especially as we first begin telecommuting with kids at home, productivity is going to suffer as we learn to adjust. With younger school-age children, you may need to extend what you're scheduling as your workday. So if you want to get in 8 hours of work to accommodate your kids' needs, you may have to take, instead of a 10-minute break in the morning, a half an hour break or even an hour break. And the same thing throughout the day, depending on the age of the children. So on the schedule, it may look like you're working a much longer workday, but that's because you're taking out chunks of family time to take care of your loved ones. If you have extremely young children at home, like babies or young toddlers, of course, the ideal would be to have somebody help you. But if that's not possible, again, you're going to have to prepare for longer work days. You may need to schedule a lot more breaks into your day to allow for paying attention to them, playing with them, and of course, taking care of them. The best advice I can give is to try to mimic what they would normally be doing, whether it was at daycare or with a regular sitter. So 3 or 4 weeks ago, what was their schedule? What were their nap times? What were their snack times, meal times? See if you can mimic that and you do your work around that, because it's going to be hard to change their schedule when they're that young, whereas you can adapt. If there's another adult in the household, you can schedule shift times. So maybe one of you has uninterrupted work time for 2 hours and the other one is in charge of the children, and then you swap. So throughout the day, you keep alternating. During the time that you're in charge of the children doesn't mean you can't get any work done, but you can schedule the types of work you can do. Like maybe that's when you can check your email or Work on something that doesn't require a ton of focus or concentration, and especially not quiet. Now, you're going to create a schedule for everyone in the household. So with children, you're going to create a schedule for them that coincides with yours, unless, of course, again, that they're babies, then you're going to do the opposite. Children really need structure, and this is not only going to help you get your work done, it's going to keep them calmer and feeling safer about what's happening. This gives everybody a greater sense of control, and it's the lack of control that's causing most of our stress. So everybody will calm down with this schedule. Be sure to explain to family members why you would love to hang out with them all day. Of course you would, but point out how important your job is for the whole family. A lot of people are out of work now, so if you're working, you're one of the very lucky ones, and it's going to serve you, your family, and your clients or customers or whoever you're supporting. So make sure that everyone in the household knows you need their support in order to do that. For really young children, they of course can't read a schedule, so you can still put them on the schedule, but just use pictures or colors, and they'll learn to follow along. When they interrupt you, and they are going to interrupt you, they're children, right? They're going to interrupt you, but just constantly keep referring them back to the schedule. Make it like a game, and they will start catching on. They won't get it perfectly right, but you want to reward them when they're cooperating. The more you do it, the more they're getting in the habit. This requires a lot of patience. And again, it's probably not going to go smoothly at first. Everybody, we all need time to adjust to this new reality. We don't know how long it's going to last, but it's very different. So really practice patience. This is really more on kids and adults because I do want to stress, even if you don't have children at home, the odds are you have coworkers who have children at home. And we all are going to have to be very adaptable and flexible in how our groups are going to get their work done. And of course, as a community, we want to take care of the children. So you want to make a two-sided sign. This is very important for everyone in the household. One side is going to say something along the lines of "be quiet," and the other one is going to signal that it's okay to make noise. So if you have kids at home, they can create this sign. You can make it fun. You can draw it. You can just hand write it on a sheet of paper. It doesn't really matter how you do it. It's just important that you have it. When you're working on something where you cannot be interrupted, say a call with your boss or a client call, you need to display the side that says, "Do not disturb" or "be quiet." So if you're in a private space, you can hang that on a doorknob. If you're working in a shared space, you can stick it on the wall with masking tape, or you can make a little sign stand. If you're working at the kitchen table, you just have to be able to constantly flip it back and forth. Now, school-age children are going to get bored really quickly, and it's going to be tempting to just let them have unlimited screen time. And I'm including this in here because it's such a poor habit to establish for kids. It's not good for their brains. However, the first week or two that you're trying to adjust to this, I'm going to say lighten up on yourself. If you are under duress trying to figure out how to deal with a family and your job and the crisis itself and whatever else is going on, I wouldn't get too severe about the screen time. If it helps them be quiet, it helps them settle down, think of it as an emergency stopgap. But eventually, and by event, I don't mean a long time, I mean maybe after a week or two, you want to get them back on a schedule where it is very limited screen time. We are adding resources, especially for your health and well-being and children as well, on our website under the responsibility page. And we'll keep adding to that. We haven't had a lot of time ourselves to update the website, but we will add them. What we're trying to add there are activities that are healthy, either for the body or the mind, like mindfulness, yoga, apps that get kids moving, things like that. And speaking of moving, they need to move, so you need to make sure you include physical activities in their schedules. Now, whether you have kids or not, but kids will find this fun if you do, you need to move. I have talked to hundreds of people in the last week and a half, and the biggest complaint already is that they find that they sit all day and they don't move. And that's what happens when you're working from home. It's just a different feel. So maybe you can take advantage of your work breaks and do exercises with either someone else in the house or with your children. If there are other adult members only in your household, still do these things together. We are going to be lacking in social connection. So the more you can do something, even for 10 or 15 minutes with another human being, the better. And if you are living alone, this would be a time perhaps to pull up a video where you're at least moving along with someone else, or connect with some friends and do stretches together online. We can do it virtually. Also use your lunch break to connect. So if you are living with family members or a roommate, try to schedule where everyone eats lunch together. And if you have children at home, there's another benefit to this, which is that eating together in a group is actually another keystone habit. And studies show that eating together strengthens children's ability to do well in their studies. So it's a win-win. Again, if you're living alone, this is a time maybe to reach out to a friend, do FaceTime, and eat lunch together virtually. It's critically important that we connect in any way we can. That's going to prevent us from getting depressed. So it may feel weird at first, or actually ridiculous at first. I'm going to feel funny about doing it myself, but I'm going to do it because it really will improve your emotional well-being. So this is a sample of what a schedule might look like. I'm using the second column for a school-aged child, but if you have 5 members in your household, you're going to have 5 columns. If you have you and a roommate, you're going to have 2 columns, but of course the activities are going to be very different. And you'll notice the idea here is to match up basically 3 things. One is anything where you can come together. So preparing meals, eating the meals together, cleaning up, you want to do it together. With the school-age children, then you might want to schedule a break for them to ask you all of their questions at once about their schoolwork they're working on, and for you to answer. So it'll be a little Q&A break. That will prevent them from interrupting you 50 times in 1/2 hour, so that you can at least work more effectively. When you get down to something where you need quiet, that's a good time to schedule screen time or a quiet chore, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you can see what you're really doing here is you're trying to align time together. You're trying to align noise level. So if you have 5 people in the house, there have to be these blocks of quiet time. And depending on what everybody's doing, they've got to find something else to do. If it's an adult, maybe that's their reading time or it's their screen time, but with earbuds in. And then you also want to schedule breaks and movement. That's very important. I can't stress that enough. And if you can find like things to do. So if you're on your computer and you have a roommate or an adult, another adult in the home, then you want to make sure that you're not draining your bandwidth. So you might want to stagger everybody's computer time so that you don't end up working really slowly. Or same thing with, let's say, streaming. You have somebody at home who wants to stream a movie and you're trying to get online, and we know the internet's already getting slower. You just want to take all of those kind of things into consideration as you're creating your schedule. And then, of course, you want to make sure you have an end time. And when it's the end of the workday, it's the end of the workday for everyone, right? So that's when the kids clean up their toys or messes. That's maybe if you have a university student at home, they shut down for the evening and put away all their schoolwork. And of course, you put away all of your work items. If you're using a portion of your home for work and you don't have a designated room, then you want to make sure you're not looking at your work all of your hours. So if it's on the kitchen table, it needs to all come off at the end of your workday. Otherwise, you can't use the table to have shared meals, and you will probably not stop working. You'll keep walking by and thinking, oh, I'll just do this, I'll just do this. Then you're going to burn out.
Distractions. It is a myth that you can take breaks to run errands, get personal things done, and still get 8 hours of work in, unless you plan on starting work very early and going very late. Household chores are staring you in the face all day long. It's very tempting to think, well, it wouldn't take very long to do the dishes. Look at the dust. I really need to mop the floor. It will save me time this weekend. You wouldn't be doing these chores if you were at your workplace, so follow the same rules. If you feel you must do a chore, like cleaning the kitchen after lunch, schedule it. Consider, however, that each chore you do is only extending your work day and disrupting your workflow. We may love them, but household members are a major distraction. The kids are playing, your spouse is watching television, your roommate is blasting music. That's why it's so important to set boundaries right from the start. Devices and apps are also very problematic. You're going to get bored at some point, just like the children. Discipline is really the only solution. Schedule device app time if you want to engage in it during your workday. Again, you're just adding to the length of your workday, but if you're going to do it, schedule it.
So speaking of household chores, with more people at home for more time, our homes are actually going to get a lot messier quicker, right? So create a chart of household assignments and make sure every member of the household has chores. This is not only going to help your group or family feel more unified, but again, it's going to give children the feeling that they're helping and that they have some sense of control. Now, it's important that you explain to children what's happening, of course, and why everyone needs to pitch in. Make them feel they're an important part of your program. Whatever your family plan or household group plan is, they should be included. They, be sure to praise them for their good work, whatever it is. And this is, again, not just children, anyone in the household. You may have adults in the household who have never been responsible for household chores, and they're not going to necessarily do them well. You need to let go of any perfectionistic expectations and just let it go. It's not important. If you see that they've done a really what you're considering a terrible job at something, never fix it where they can see that you fixed it. It's much more important that you support their mental health and well-being than to worry about if the bed is made properly or the clothes are folded correctly. Now, quiet chores are an excellent activity if you have kids at home while you're working. They can fold laundry in silence. They can wipe down countertops. They can put away toys. There's all kinds of things even young children can do. And again, you can make this fun. It's like it's the quiet zone. They can work, and you're going to put it on the schedule, what they're going to do, which quiet chores. Now, during non-working hours or during your breaks, you can also make chores a fun activity. For 15 minutes, for example, everyone that's doing their chore has to do it on one foot or while they're singing or something like that. You want to get creative, and this isn't just in order to get the chores done. Our mental and emotional well-being is going to be taxed during this time. So the more things you can do to introduce fun into the household, the better. And of course, keep in mind, everyone's going to start getting bored because we can't go anywhere or do anything outside. So you really want to start focusing on what you can do to make your living and working environment more pleasant and more fun. Now, there's always an upside to everything, right? And so there's going to be some fun things or benefits to our circumstances. First of all, most of us most of us have a commute to get to work. So all of us have this in common that we can be grateful for. We are not sitting in traffic for extended periods of time every morning and every evening. So show gratitude every day. Say thank you for that. Enjoy the extra time you may have with family members. Even if you're living at home, alone, you're going to have more opportunity to talk with your family members. Now, once you're following your schedule really effectively and everything's getting done, you'll discover that you actually get more work done working from home probably than you do at the office. So you might end up with some free extra time there. Plus, you're gaining an extra 5 to 10 hours a week by not having to drive back and forth to work. So what can you do with all this time? So again, of course, family time. You could also get your household chores done during the time that you used to be spending while you were commuting. Of course, don't do those on your work hours. Once you've really established all these new habits, then you can start adjusting your schedule. So if you commuted an hour each way to work, then after you've gotten in the habit of getting up and going to work in your home, you can change that and maybe decide you want to sleep an extra hour or half hour. Of course, exercise, we're all going to need that. Meditation is an excellent way to start your day, to remain calm throughout the day, to help you address anxiety, to help you improve your feelings of frustration or boredom. So this is a good time to take that practice up if you don't already meditate. And of course, reading. Now, it's, again, so imperative that you take breaks during your workday. Now, one of the things that you can do if you have other household members is something called instant recess. It's an evidence-based practice introduced from a professor at UCLA many years ago. There are lots of videos online if you want to follow a video to do it. But it's basically that anyone in the household at any point in time can yell out instant recess, and everyone has to stop what they're doing and get up and dance together for 10 minutes. It's been shown to improve your health and longevity, and of course, it greatly improves your mood. The only caveat to that is your two-sided sign has to be on the side that says it's okay to make noise. So make sure everyone knows that. If you have kids at home, there are short games you can play in your 10 or 15-minute break, like Uno. I think that's a really good one that's fast. I'm sure there's lots of others, but you can use your creativity. But bring everybody together, even if it's for 10 minutes. Maybe you see how fast you can play a game. Everyone can take a walk, even if it's just around the block. You can walk around most blocks in 10 minutes or less. You can have a yoga session. If you have kids, you can include them. You'll find it's quite amusing as people try to do the poses. And so again, it'll not only be good for your body, but cheer everyone up. And of course, you can just put on music and just free dance around. Now, technology is going to be a challenge. First, let's all agree that during scheduled work hours, we only use work-related technology. The only way you're going to be able to successfully do this is to move social media apps and games off of your phone homepage or off of your device homepage and put it somewhere deeper in the device. So turn off all non-work related app notifications during your work hours. So you don't want to hear bells and whistles and dings, and you don't want to see the little count creeping up on your Instagram or Facebook icon on that front page. It's very distracting, and it's really hard to resist. Now, internet speed and bandwidth matter. And again, we're already noticing a slowdown, but if you notice an unusually slow speed, there are a few things you can try. One is to reduce or eliminate other household members from streaming while you're working. Another is to use only one online app at a time. If you're running multiple apps, they could all be going out, pinging, looking for signals, that kind of thing. That'll slow you down. If your device is connected through Wi-Fi and running slowly, try plugging the device directly into the router to see if this speeds up your service. If it does, you may just need a Wi-Fi extender. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your internet. I will say that I originally said try Amazon. Try it if you use Amazon, but Amazon seems to be having some challenges with delivering non-essential items right now. You can also try online sites like Best Buy, who, as of last week, were offering free delivery. Things are changing so quickly. I can't promise anything, but these are places for you to check. Fry's Electronics, anywhere that sells computer equipment is going to have a Wi-Fi extender. Keep in mind that if you have selected a location for your home office that is like at the opposite end of the household from your Wi-Fi router, this is also just a really good idea to ensure that you don't lose your signal. You can test your internet speed if you're not sure at speedtest.net. If it's unusually slow, which I would say is 35 megabytes per second or less, I would contact my internet provider. That's too slow. That means only one person at a time is going to be able to do anything in your household, and it's still not going to be very fast. Now, if you have DSL, keep in mind that most of your neighbors are home too, and your speeds are going to be reduced, and there's really not anything you can do about that because of the way DSL travels. So you may just need to adjust your schedule to allow more time to finish internet-based tasks. One of the things at first about this is that if you work in an organization that has like a T1 internet speed, you're going to notice it's drastically slower at home as you try to do the same tasks. That also, there's nothing you can do about that. None of us have that at home. So adjust your expectations and you have to accept that it's going to take a little longer to get things done. Now, you want to have regular check-ins. Social distancing does not mean social disconnection, and I really don't like that they're calling it social distancing. It's physical distancing. There's no reason why we can't stay connected socially. So this is important on a personal level. So whether you have friends or family members or whoever it is, you want to just have regular check-ins. It's going to make you feel more normal, and it's going to help us stay more connected. For work, teams should have regular check-ins online, and you really want to put the cameras on. Working from home can be very isolating, and we need to remember that we're still part of a group. Additionally, in communications, only 7% of what we communicate is through the words we speak. The other 93% of it is our facial expressions and our tone of voice and our body language. So really important that we see each other, even if it's on on video. Now, there are several online meeting apps. I'm telling you, it's like the world is running on Zoom right now. But I don't know what Zoom's capacity is. We were using Zoom for work before this happened, and we've now added an additional platform because I am concerned it's going to start crashing. But for personal use, Skype, FaceTime, all of the Hangouts, whatever you want to use is fine. For work, you do need a more robust platform like Adobe or GoToMeeting, or Zoom's been great, so I'm not in any way criticizing it. I just think because it's been so promoted, everybody's going to be on it and it's going to get shakier. WebEx is another one. That's the one we just added. You're just going to have to be flexible and realize that they're not going to all stay perfectly stable all of the time. But for work purposes, it's very important that you not set up your own if you're not the supervisor or manager. Leave that for them to do because there are a lot of criteria involved, and they need to be able to ensure that whatever platform is being used is in compliance with the organization's policies. These check-ins can be very short. 5 minutes is fine. Again, it's touching base, but it's also a good way to make sure everyone's sort of on the same page with what work is expected and what's happening with the organization. And I think that part is very important for you working from home. If you are a supervisor or a manager or a director, someone in a leadership role, keep in mind that there's so many things that are unknown right now, and it's natural for people to worry about their organizations. If they're going to make it through this, if they're going to fold, will they still have a job when this is over, that kind of thing. So if you can share what's happening at an organizational level, that will help alleviate a lot of those fears. Remember, when we don't know something, we make it up. We start telling ourselves stories. So just a brief little update, maybe once a week on any changes happening or just reassurance that everything's fine with the company. Supervisors should also schedule brief one-on-one video conferences with every staff member on a regular basis. I would say at least once a week. So you're going to have daily or every other day check-ins, and then you're going to have once a week one-on-ones with every staff member. And again, this can be really short, but team cohesion is key to productivity, and the only way for you to maintain that now is through these connections. So it's really important. Supervisors are going to have to be really accountable. They need to clarify expectations. So remember, when you're all together in an office, you can say something, people are half listening. They can anytime throughout the day go, wait, tell me that again, or what did you say? But in this circumstance, it's not going to work that way. So you're going to have to be very specific, provide deadlines for everything employees should be doing, and follow up on missed deadlines. And I don't mean that in a punitive way. I mean, just be on top of it. If a staff person misses a deadline, you want to connect with them right away. Ask them, point out that you didn't get the assignment, it wasn't turned in or wasn't submitted. Ask if they need support. Ask what's causing the delay. Just check in right away. Provide clear instructions regarding virtual apps and platforms that you've put into place for your staff to work. You want to make sure it's private and secure. For a lot of people, it's important that it's HIPAA compliant because that's the bulk of the people working right now are in the health industries. You want to make sure that there are, if there are length of time of use restrictions, that all staff members know that. Keep in mind, too, that things like the privacy and security issue and the HIPAA compliance, those vary widely between the platforms and even within the platforms. So, for example, with Zoom, There's a free version that allows you to have up to a 40-minute meeting. That free version is not HIPAA compliant. The full version of Zoom is evidently HIPAA compliant. I've heard a little bit of contradiction, but it seems that it is. WebEx is another good example. They are considered HIPAA compliant, but only if you enter into a contract with them that specifies you are providing health services. So there's a lot of details involved, which is why I suggested earlier that you have to take charge of this if this is not for staff members to do. If, as a supervisor, consider focusing on work output more than the number of hours worked, especially at the beginning. And I realize that's a challenge for hourly employees. You'll have to work that out with your organization and with your staff. But if they're performing the same amount of work, but it takes them a little less time or a little more time, that's the kind of thing you have to work out. But the output is the real goal, right? We want to keep producing and keep supporting clients and customers and whatever it is that our goals are. And so really try to stay focused on that as we work out all the kinks. Consider temporarily switching roles based on individual situations. So if you have two employees that their main job is making client calls, one is home alone, one has 3 small children at home, that's probably not going to work very well, right? So you want to consider maybe can you move more client calls to the one who's home alone and take other work off of that person and move it to the person who has the children, like paperwork or scheduling appointments or things like that. We just don't want to set people up to fail. We want to make sure that and we know they want to work. We want to make sure that we do what we can to ensure that they can work. Now, flexibility, I realize, is absolutely required at this point, along with patience. But you'll find it won't take long to adapt. We're very adaptable beings. It's more a matter of mindset, switching over to the fact that nothing's the same now. So don't focus on how things were done. Focus on how we're going to get them done now in this new world order so that we can achieve results. Staff is going to have to be more accountable than ever and really be held to a higher level of responsibility. And that's because our regular structure just sort of blew up, right? So for people that have telecommuted for a long time, of course, this is no big deal. But if this is new to you, you have now a situation where there is no one really monitoring you like they were before. So and we have leaders who have never supervised people remotely before. So there is no reason why they would automatically feel comfortable that you're just home working away, even if you're home working away. And it's not a personal judgment or criticism. It's a level of discomfort of not knowing how to operate this way. So the onus is really on staff members to really show that they're doing the work even though they're at home. And that's going to establish the trust with their supervisors so that the supervisors can relax a little bit about this. So it's really being somewhat empathetic and compassionate to the fact that this is not easy for your supervisors. Now, if you have very young children or babies, you need to discuss scheduling options with your supervisor as well as work hours. Any kind of special circumstance, don't assume that your supervisor knows. Just be very clear. If you have a lack of internet access, if your phone is your only access, you might be limited and we're working remotely. So talk to your supervisor about that. If you have a lack of equipment at home, so do you need to print and have no printer? Do you have an outdated laptop at home, or you have incompatible apps, or you don't have the software you need? It's not saying that you're going to have to purchase anything at all. It's just you have to make sure that your supervisor is aware. That may change their expectations. Now, if you're unable to complete your work or you're going to be late, don't wait for your supervisor to track you down. Contact them, explain what's going on. If you need to alter your schedule, just talk to your supervisor first. If you have agreed that your working hours are 8 to 5 and you've got your breaks built in there, and you suddenly, run out of diapers and you think, okay, I'll just run to the store and get diapers. Don't do that without checking in with your supervisor. First of all, going to the grocery store now can take 2 hours, so it's not a quick trip. And secondly, the odds are that will be right when your supervisor calls to ask you a question and they don't know where you are, why you're not answering the phone or the email, etc. And then you're disturbing that trust you're trying to build. So it's communication. Just communication is the key to successfully managing remote relationships. Now, if you're struggling with being productive from home, ask for assistance. Just contact your supervisor and say, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I can't get motivated, or I can't get the technology to work, or whatever it is. Just be very clear with your supervisor. You can always contact us for support or resources. You can go to the website, or you can follow us on social media. You have lots of ways to contact us. Now, there are some special considerations here. First of all, these are quite extraordinary times, and we have to be kind to ourselves and to each other. And of course, patience. Patience is running thin. The circumstances have drained our patience, but we need to rebuild that, because by doing all of this together and being compassionate and kind to each other, we'll get through it, and we'll get through it with our jobs intact and without impacting our clients. Working from home can be very enjoyable, but it's not going to be if you don't start out disciplined. If you don't create the structure and the scheduling as we described, or something similar to it, you're going to end up probably having a problem with your job, because your productivity is going to fall way off, and that can't be tolerated for very long. So please take the time to set it up at the beginning. It's also very important that you remain very self-aware. Depending on how long this situation goes on, spending day after day after day home alone, or home, now I'm going to use the real word, trapped. It's going to start feeling trapped with the other people in your household. It's going to take a toll. Now, if you are by yourself, you're more prone to this, but it can happen just as easily if there are other people around. We can become depressed. So it's very important that we pay attention to what's going on in our bodies and our minds. One of the easiest things to notice is your motivation. If you get up in the morning and your motivation is gone, that is a signal that you are sliding down. So take steps. Of course, if it's serious, if you feel seriously depressed, contact a professional, or at least contact your supervisor. But for most of us, it's not going to be that severe. It's going to be more like a really low mood. And so you can take a walk like first thing in the morning, or you can take multiple short walks throughout the day. Getting outside, even for really short periods, is really a boost to our mindset. So get out and move and see nature, even if it's just for a few minutes. You can play music while you're working. Anything from classical to pop usually works really well. Classical if you're trying to really focus on something, and pop if you're working on something lighter. Pop is also known to boost your mood, because the beat of the music is very similar to the rhythm of our heartbeat. So go for that if you're trying to cheer yourself up a little bit, but don't play hard rock, don't play rap, don't play like alternate jazz that gets really like out of tune and kind of crazy. All of those things are going to be disruptive to your concentration. If you're feeling sad, just pick up the phone and call a friend or relative, even if that's not what you would normally do if you were working in the office. But again, these are unusual circumstances. Take a few minutes to chat with someone that you like or love, so that you can feel a little bit better. This would be the only time I would sort of overturn my rule about TV. If you are home alone and you are feeling sad, depressed, lethargic, then turn on the television while you're trying to work, but put it on a talk show that is not important, like no political discussions, not a talk show where people argue, but something, like an entertainment style talk show. Or put your device or TV onto a regular show or a movie that you've seen 100 times, where there's no question about what's going to happen in the story. You don't want to be distracted by trying to follow a story, but hearing other people's voices can help relieve feelings of loneliness. Now, this is just if you're feeling really low. Don't do this on a regular basis. Don't make this a habit. But if you need to hear human beings, this is a temporary solution. And then finally, do not turn on the news and have it playing in the background. This will actually make you feel much worse, much quicker. So don't do that. I would limit checking in with any news period to only once or twice a day, and check a reliable source, and then turn it off. It's depressing. Now, there are lots of future implications to what's happening here. One is that this telecommuting, this emergency telecommuting everywhere could be a tipping point regarding remote work. Many companies that have been resistant to shifting to it might find the benefits of it, which there are a lot of benefits of it, not just to us working from home, but for companies. It can save a lot of time and a lot of money. It's also good for the environment, right? Already it's like amazing. They can see fish in the Venice canals, skies over China are turning blue again, or they're not turning blue, but the brown is going away so you can see the blue. Um, Car emissions are making a huge difference by us. We're not on the road and all of a sudden the air is getting cleaner, the water is getting cleaner. Now, so there's lots of benefits, but it's also a major change in our way of life. And I think it's really important that we share our experiences and concerns, because it's possible that some of us will never go back to our regular 9-to-5 jobs after this, that companies will change how they're operating. So we can start now producing and creating best practices for productivity, while also keeping in mind and implementing practices to ensure our self-care and our well-being. On the flip side, at some point, you will be returning to your previous on-site schedules. Now, some of you will love working from home. Love it. I love it. I've been doing it for 15 years. I love working from home. But some of you will hate it. So there's going to be a mixed bag when this is over. Those of you that have hated being trapped in your home for all this time are going to be so excited to get to go back to work, while others are going to be very resistant to returning back to the old style. If you have families at home, they may be resistant to you leaving as well. It's going to be like the very first time you went to work after a child was old enough to realize you were leaving, right? So when this time arrives, wherever you are on the spectrum of loving or hating telecommuting, we need to be kind to ourselves and kind to others, and recognize that there may be a grieving process for a lot of people as they have to go back to something that now they don't want to. Even though they love their jobs, they may not love reverting back to the quote old ways. Now, most importantly, so important, please keep in mind that none of us knows what life's going to look like. Okay, I'm guessing here. We're all guessing. We don't know what it's going to look like in a few months, but we do know that we still have each other. We have ourselves, the real us underneath panic and fear and anxiety. We're still in there, right? And we know this will pass. So as anxiety or frustration arises along the way, practice your breathing exercises, practice mindfulness, practice meditation, practice yoga. Any of those contemplative, reflective practices are going to serve you well. Stay focused on your loved ones, and you have to take very good care of yourself. You can't be of service to others if you're not well. We can and will get through this together. We have resources again on our website, so please feel free to check that out. And we have some just little quick hits here. Meditation apps are available on Google Play or Apple Store. Many of them have free versions. Insight Timer is completely free, and Stop, Breathe, and Think has a version for kids. There is a social gratitude app, fairly new. It's available for Apple only. It's called G Thanks, and it is a social media app. So you're going to be sharing information with other people. It's all about gratitude. Gratitude has been shown in a lot of studies to increase your happiness level, which of course impacts your health in a positive way. We've got a couple of little just quick exercise routines here that you might be able to use while you're setting up your office. And there is one good example of an article on how to create effective telecommuting programs if you are a supervisor. Please connect with us on social media and follow our podcast. It's called A Mindful Moment with Teresa McKee, and it's available anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. We thank you for your time. We wish you great success as you move into telecommuting. And again, if you have any questions or need any support, please contact us. I hope you are well. Please remember to be kind and be mindful. Thank you.